last couple of weeks, I've been reading up on the world and lore of the Rise of the Guardians / Guardians of Childhood franchise. And throughout my quest for knowledge, I've stumbled across many strange things. However, one of the wackiest in recent memory came only a couple of weeks ago, when against my will, I found myself engulfed in the wild world of the Rise of the Guardians and Frozen shipping, as I uncovered the Jelsa ship. Jelsa as in Jack Frost and Elsa. And it was interesting, and kind of frightening. So much smut and lewd pictures and artworks. Fanfics of every genre and alternate universes under the sun. Spliced video montages with hundreds of millions of views, headcanons, theoretical children. You know the drill, I'm sure. And I made a video about this topic, expressing my surprise and also disgust because, remember, Jack Frost is a teenager and Elsa is a full-on adult, so it gave me the epic heebie-jeebies. And I thought that was that. Bit weird. You know, a DreamWorks character getting shipped with a Disney character, but, I could move on with my life. Until somebody in the comments revealed to me that this is merely the tip of the metaphorical iceberg, that Jelsa and Frozen crossing over with the Rise of the Guardians, that's just the beginning of this rabbit hole. For they told me to Google Rise of the Brave Tangled Dragons, which is a pretty terrible name, not gonna lie, but whatever, shipping names usually are completely and utterly terrible. And like the poor old naive smarty pants that I am, I figured, how deep could this thing go? I mean, the Jelsa thing was a bit intense, but it was manageable. And then I googled this bad boy and woohoo! Yeah, I saw it had its own wiki. Not an article, but a full-on wiki of its own. And so from that point onwards, I knew I'm probably in a little bit of trouble here, but I'm no coward. And so I decided to face this thing head on and dive into the fandom. Take a look. What's it all about? And boy, oh boy! It is 1,000,000% more intense than Jelsa ever was, because now you've got 4 whole fandoms in the mix. We got Rise of the Guardians, we got How to Train Your Dragon, we got Tangled, and we got Brave. But more specifically, we're taking the main protagonists from all those franchises, and we're squishing them together in a variety of different ways. So that's Jack Frost, Hiccup Haddock III, Merida Dunbrock, and Rapunzel. Once again, I can't help but wonder why, and how? Okay, so I kind of get the why. Shipper's gonna ship, artist's gonna art, and writer's gonna write. And I'm sure you could find crossovers for literally anything under the sun given the chance. Literally anything. But I guess that's neither here nor there. It's the how I'm stuck on. Merida and Rapunzel, I get it. They're both Disney princesses from a similar era, so people are gonna closely associate them. Jack Frost and Hiccup, same studio. But that's it. I guess they're both teenage boys. But yeah, apparently this one, Hiccup and Jack Frost, that's the OG ship. So, anyway, for some inexplicable reason, these 4 franchises were smushed together to form this amalgamation, Rise of the Brave Tangled Dragons, aka the Big 4. And I don't think anybody really knows how this thing came about. Like, why these 4 franchises specifically? Why are our Big 4 not Shrek, and Gloria from Madagascar, Poe the Panda, and Lenny from Shark Tale? Why not? So I went to the wiki for clues, and apparently even the superfans writing this shit have no clue. The wiki literally states, it is unknown how the idea sparked or who came up with it, other than it was most likely born on Tumblr. Because of course it was. That is a blast from the past. Is Tumblr still popular? Is it still used? I remember I used to hear about it all the time back when I was in school, but that was a while ago now. But I feel like it's well and truly faded into obscurity in the years since then. Maybe I'm just out of touch though, who knows? Regardless, I do find it very mysterious. Feels like a relic of the 2010s that will never really make sense unless you were part of it at the time, but will forever serve as a bit of a time capsule of internet culture, at least that corner of the internet. Now, unlike Jelsa, which was largely straightforward, the Big 4 is very multifaceted, from what I can see at least. It has all the usual trappings, of course, the relentless horde of fan fiction, fan art, live action photo shoots, cosplays, video edits, porn, woohoo! And that's where I start to die inside, because I'm pretty sure, aren't they all minors? Like, let's not play the game of, in the olden days, age of consent laws were different, or, they're animated characters, why does it even matter? Why does it matter? Well, child porn is morally bankrupt, in every form, that's why. Although, at least, I think Rapunzel's 18, and yeah, Hiccup does age a bit, but the shit ton of stuff I found, it was him in the first movie, like, age 14. Ew. But luckily, if you're able to put the porn to one side for a moment, and that is a bit of a sentence, if you can put the porn to one side for a moment, I did find the whole concept, the general concept, far less troubling than Jelsa. I mean, by no means is it less baffling to me. In fact, I find it more baffling, consider how big and complex it is. But at least I'm not cringing out and feeling ill at every turn, wondering what depraved piece of content I'm going to stumble upon next. Of course, I did probably speak a little too soon, because the further you dig, the more convoluted it becomes. And, in some ways, the dirtier it becomes. Because it very quickly becomes clear that there are different layers to this. I mean, Jesus, there's 4 characters, which means 6 different shipping combos. And from a quick sleuth through the databanks, it's quite clear to see some trends. Whilst there are 6 primary ships here we're talking about, 3 of them are far more prominent than the rest. Jackunzel, which is Jack Frost and Rapunzel. Hijack, which is Hiccup and Jack Frost. And then Merricup, which is Merida and Hiccup. So each of our fellas gets his own girl, and then the ship that apparently started it all is also up there in terms of prominence. And of course, that's the one that has the most adult works. I wouldn't personally know, haven't dug through it, but it's what the wiki says, so it must be true. And some of them, I guess they make sense. Merida and Hiccup both have that Dark Ages vibe going for them, and she's Scottish, and I think the books, How to Train Your Dragon, I think they're meant to be set in Viking Scotland, like the Scottish Isles at the top, Shetland, something like that. It's meant to be around that place. So I guess you could argue they've got that going for them. Not much else, but they've got that. Overbearing parent, maybe. But Rapunzel and Jack Frost, they have me at a loss. I guess she's sort of flowers in her hair, spring vibes, and he's winter, opposites attract. Ugh, why am I trying to justify this? And then of course there's Hiccup and Jack Frost, and if I've learned anything, it's that people are determined to make porn of anything. So this one doesn't even have me surprised. But yeah, moving on from those, then there's the less popular ships, and they seem to be vastly less cared about, and even their wiki entries outwardly say this. So there's that. But these ships, they're not the strangest thing I've seen from this fandom. It's the 4 extra ones, the zest ships. Yeah, and they make me scratch my head and think, but why? Why was this made? What is the purpose? And of course, by zest ships, if you're out of the loop, I mean incest. But it's special incest because it's with themselves, but an alternate universe counterpart. Hicksest. Hicksest. It sounds like Cletus and Brandine from The Simpsons, but yes.
Do you, Cletus, take Brandine to be... Wait a minute. Are you 2 brother and sister?
We's all kind of things.
One is Hiccup, and the other is Hiccup. This is both wholesome and deeply troubling. Because the wholesome side, it seems to usually go the way of having the older Hiccup, like the 20-year-old from the second film, hanging out with the younger version, and they're sort of like a brothers dynamic. Wholesome artists and wholesome writers use this as a chance to show off a brotherly love sort of thing. A mentor kind of thing. Degenerates use this as age gap porn, which makes me cry. But thankfully, the zest ships here aren't that popular. Same with the 2 femcests, Mericest and Rapunzest. I just hate it. And in fact, the wiki even outwardly says that these 2 ones, the ones with the girls, they're looked down on in the community. And I don't know if this is just one editor who has a bone to pick with it, or whether this is a legit community feeling, but the comments on some of these articles were similarly baffled, just like I am. So perhaps people woke up and thought, da fuck? And honestly, the popularity of incest in general, it's making me weep these days. For the majority of major franchises where the siblings are just there and being wholesome and, siblingy, it really doesn't take much work to discover a thriving niche incest community. Who are you? And why? Why are you doing this? How can you possibly think this is good? But regardless, this is not really the topic of the video. Perhaps I'll come back to this one day, but we'll move on for now. Because yeah, I find that subsection of the crossover gross. It's baffling and weird. Beyond happy sibling vibes, why would somebody do this? Why would they like this? Especially in a romantic or sexual way? Am I so out of touch?
No, it's the children who are wrong.
Ugh, so strange. But now we move on from that and try to forget about it. And we'll talk about something that has me equally confused, but in a less disgusted manner. It's when they take these characters, whom they've already crossed over into some new joint universe, and then they slap them into another one. Why? Hogwarts AU? Hunger Games AU? Modern day AU? Oh, come on. Regency? Omegaverse? Oh, Omegaverse. Who invented this? I want to find you. Why? Why? At what point does this no longer resemble the characters that they were originally? By slapping them into these different worlds, they do become different characters, don't they? They're just original characters with the same design and name. And so why even bother at that point? Do they retain all their powers and backstory? Are they being portaled into these scenarios? I don't know, I haven't read them. It seems like a lot of hoops to jump through though. You know, I don't mean to shame, but I just find it very tiring. Ugh, I'm just getting tired thinking about it. But also, on a positive note, because I don't want this video to be just shit on something that people like, this whole thing, it's actually also kind of intriguing in a way. A piece of internet history, like this joint world, this universe with countless stories, at least the wholesome parts of it. It's wholly different from other people making fan works of a franchise or doing a single crossover, because this is a whole universe that's been built through collaboration. And obviously there's no set canon, and the films are largely devoid of much backstory, but there's this collaborative effort being undertaken that's something that's really interesting to me. It's like a 2010s internet version of those fireside stories that grew across generations. But since so many people had access to them at once, it grows faster and faster and faster and becomes this phenomenon. I mean, I've actually never seen anything quite like it, because it's not just extending the world of a book or a franchise. It's creating something new out of these base parts, none of them connected, only through this fandom. And whilst it can be a bit of a wild west at times, judging by some of the shit I've seen that my eyes will never be able to unsee, it's also carved out something of its own little place in the history books, or the history wiki. And this whole dive into the fandom, well, it certainly has been an experience. Not always positive, but still, I don't regret it. I'll give you that. I don't regret reading this. On some level, I've enjoyed this. And hell, I only went in on the surface level because, you know, I didn't want to dive deeper than that. But it's just so interesting. And so, yeah, I don't really have much more to say on this topic, really. And so with all that being said, I would like to remind you that this has just been my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. Are you a part of this fandom? Have you heard of it before? Do you like it? Maybe not. I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and let me know.